Hi everybody. Okay, so we're gonna try to do an oil painting of this apple today. I'm just showing you the paints themselves that we're gonna be using. These materials were bought on Amazon. They're all really affordable. And when I say affordable, I mean they're all pretty dang cheap. So, and I'm only going to be using one paintbrush. It's just a flat brush. I don't know what number because it was just a cheap brand of brushes that we purchased. Feel free to paint along with me. It's gonna be in real time. I hope that you guys get some stuff out of this. I'm basically doing it to practice. I have done 2 previous apples that were my practice apples. They came out decent. Well, so basically, I normally oil paint, um, but I was asked by the people at my church if I could volunteer some time to teach some of the kids in our town how to paint. And I was super excited. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I would have loved that when I was younger, had that been available to me. Um, so I thought it was a really cool idea. The only problem is I'm an oil painter, not an acrylic painter. And you really wouldn't think that that's a huge difference, but it's a huge difference. Um, the first couple of paintings I did, and I'll put them somewhere so that you guys can see. I'm not afraid to show my bad work. But the first 2 that I painted, one was a candle, the next one was a orange. I literally had no clue what I was doing, and they came out pretty bad. Um, oh, just real quickly, I'm gonna explain what I'm doing here. I basically have thinned out the paint with water to the point where it's almost acting like a watercolor. I am just blocking in my values. So, what are your values? Those values are your darks and your lights, basically. It's anywhere that you see a contrast in shade. So, I'm just trying to block in my values, and I'm going layer by layer, and I'm not using a whole lot of paint at first. So if you were wondering what I was doing, that's what I'm doing. I'm only using one color at this point. Okay, so back to what I was saying. I can count on one hand how many times I have painted with acrylics, and it's probably been about 15 years since I've even used them. I've never been a fan of acrylics. I know, there's so many people out there that are just mind-blowingly good at using this type of paint. But it just never caught on with me. But there's times when it's so beneficial or it's so helpful. One of those times being now. I have to teach this class. And first of all, this paint, all the acrylics and trays and brushes, they were all donated financially to our church through a very kind lady named Ellen. Thank you, Ellen, if you watch this. And so, first of all, I didn't want her to spend a ton of money on materials. I wanted it to be totally affordable to almost anybody. Now, I know when I was younger, I did not really have money for paints at all. Now, I was kind of lucky. My mom is an artist. I didn't grow up with my mom, though. I grew up with my dad and my brother. Okay, so I know I don't know. How do you explain your past without going into your past? It's always weird. But anyway, so I wanted these kids to be able to afford these supplies if they were wanting to continue their art journey, or if their parents were able to buy them. I wanted them to be affordable to just about anybody. I mean, I think you can buy the canvases for like $1.50 for a pack of 3 at Walmart. If you're new to painting, you're going to learn some things about color theory, not major things, but some things. Okay, now I'm mixing up a different color. But if you mix blue and yellow, you're going to get green. And so that's what we're going to do here. Yeah, so I'm mixing green. If you wanted to mix a deeper green color, you can mix yellow and black. In fact, I do that often when I oil paint. Most blacks have a bluish base to them. I'm probably way oversimplifying it, but that's probably a good thing anyway. But yeah, you can mix black and yellow and you will get a green. But I'm starting with just good old-fashioned blue and yellow. Now, blue is a dominant color, so you only want to use a very little bit of blue at a time, otherwise it will overwhelm the yellow. A good rule of thumb is just using a very little bit of paint when you're mixing at first until you get more comfortable with mixing paint, and then you can start to grab more colors or more paint as you go. Something interesting. So I originally was practicing my other 2 apples with inexpensive Walmart paint. And there's a difference in this Amazon paint versus the Walmart paint. The biggest difference is the color payoff is better with the Amazon paints. I know it doesn't look like it in the video, and that's probably because of my phone is like 8 years old and it's not a fancy phone, and that's what I'm using to record this. So I think that it's just a little bit washed. The colors look way brighter in real life than they do on the recording. But having said that, this particular Amazon paint, acrylic paint, even though it's cheap, it's pretty pigmented and it instantly stained the canvas underneath, whereas the Walmart inexpensive paints didn't do that. They basically, if I wanted to remove something or add another color, it was almost like I could erase the other color unless it was completely dry. And then, of course, that was a little bit harder to do. But even with that, it was almost like I could scrub it in a little bit to get it to cover up the old underpainting. So on the leaf, you might notice there's still a little bit of a line work underneath there that you can see. That's not a big deal. It just means I will have to wait until that layer dries and then I can go back over and add another layer on top. I'm getting ready to switch it up again. So I go back and forth between the leaf and the apple. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm allowing each layer to kind of dry a little bit. Originally, when I had gotten back into trying to learn how to paint in acrylics, I was really struggling because I was trying to blend them like I do my oil paints if you were to oil paint uh, wet into wet. And because acrylics dry so fast, I was trying to hurry up and blend them right away. Now, you can do that a little bit with acrylics, but it wasn't working out that well for me. Maybe it's the cheap pigments, maybe it's my inexperience. Um, oh, before I continue on that road though, I am painting some orange tones in here. I kind of messed up on this too. So it's true that the camera is affecting the chroma. The chroma is just the vibrancy or the brightness of the color. But I actually didn't rinse the green out of my brush enough. So my orange was kind of a little bit drab. It's just not as bright of a chroma as I could have gotten if I would have rinsed my brush out a little bit better. So just keep that in mind. But when you mix red and yellow, of course you're going to get orange. I mean, it's basic color theory, but it's still color theory. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. I don't know. So I'm going in and I'm kind of just trying to deepen the paint areas that I want to deepen. I am constantly reinforcing my darks and my lights, and then I'm also adjusting the temperature as I go. And what do I mean by adjusting the temperature? The left side of the apple is warmer and lighter. It's got that bright orange. So when I'm on that side, I'm using more yellow in with my red to create like a more saturated orange. And then on the right side of the apple, there's more pinky and violet tones. So I'm using, well, not yet, but I will be using more blue with my red to create more of those violet tones. Now, the exception is the upper right hand side of the apple right under the leaf. There is an orangey red tone there. So I'm just kind of checking those things out and seeing how I can adjust it as I go. And again, this looks very faded compared to how it looks in real life. In real life, it's a lot more vibrant, uh, but you know, some of that was caused by me adding the green, and some of that's just my recorder. I promise, guys, I will invest in a better uh, video setup eventually. Just life is expensive sometimes. Okay, so now what am I going on to? I'm going back to the leaves in the apple, and I'm gonna be working on that for a while. I think at some point in the leaf, I end up overworking it. So if you're painting along with me, keep that in mind. I am not a perfect artist. I don't get things perfect right out the gate. Just being real with you. So if you are painting along with me and you're following every step I do end up overworking the leaf. Let's see here. So affordability. I want these kids to feel like, I'm calling them kids, but they're young adults. I want them to feel like they can afford to do this, because I'm not kidding you guys. When I was a teenager, I had the passion to draw like you wouldn't believe. And this is way before there were ever streaming systems. It was, nobody even had computers in their home. Well, hardly anybody had computers in their homes when I was growing up. I didn't. I grew up without a computer. So there you go. Okay, so I'm taking a little bit of blue and I'm adding it to the red. That purple is a little too purple, so I am going to adjust the color until I get the temperature and the color that's better representative of the apple. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. I am not a perfectionist, and I'm definitely not a hyper realist artist. I'm not going for that. So, if you are trying to learn how to do hyperrealism, uh, there's a lot better teachers than me. Speaking of teachers, I was really struggling with learning how to use acrylic paints, you know. And I was on one of the sites of watching one of the artists that does incredible acrylic paintings, and somebody in the chat noticed that I commented saying how much I hate using acrylics because they're so hard for me to use. And they were so kind and they said, you know, Shirley, just keep in mind, it's just like oil painting. You just need to do one layer at a time. And as soon as that person said that, and I wish I could remember their name, I don't know their name, and I don't even remember which artist I was watching, but as soon as they said that, it just totally clicked. I mean, as good as it's going to for somebody who's new to it. So for me, doing this, wait until the layer is dry, then doing another layer over top made perfect sense. I do that often in my oil paints. And actually, a lot of watercolor artists do that too. There's some amazing ones that I watch that I'm subscribed to. So I think you can learn a lot from multiple different artists to help benefit your art, even if it's not a medium that you use, or even if it's not a style in which you paint. I watch it all. I watch I watch wood carving. I watch how to make armor. I watch how to build cars. I watch how to build houses. I love all of that. All of it to me is craftsmanship and creativity, and it's all interesting, and it's all beneficial, and it's only enhanced my life to learn these things from other people. I mean, just ridiculous. I watch stonemasonry, and there's so many talented people out there. And when you decide I'm only this one type of artist, and that's the only kind of content you watch, you really are limiting yourself on the things that you can achieve in your art. And um, yeah, don't hold yourself back like that. Watch it all, try it all at least once, and then decide whether or not you're into it or good at it. And if it sticks, then cool. There's so many things I've tried, you guys, that I thought, there's no way I'm gonna like this. And then I did it, and it changed my life. Um, Quick story. Uh, I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada for probably about 25 years. It's where I met my husband, who was born and raised there, and my son, who was born and raised there. Uh, anyway, my best friend out there is incredibly creative. She's so talented in so many ways, but she got me into so many weird things that I would never, ever in my life thought I would do. I ended up becoming a fire performer, which I danced with fire. Um, and I ended up learning how to do chainmail, which, if you don't know what chainmail is, it's a type of armor. I learned how to do that. Um, those are things I would have never in my life tried if it wasn't for my best friend, Tanya. So anyway, it's just so cool because you just never know what paths life is going to take you on and what kind of adventures you're going to have. You just need to be willing to try stuff. And yeah, it's crazy. I have a tree in my backyard right now that got cut down, and it's like it's probably about 4 foot tall right now. Most of it was cut down, not all of it. And every time I look at it, I go, I want to carve that into a mermaid. Every time I go in my backyard. And I'm gonna get myself a cordless chainsaw. I have an electric chainsaw that I use, but and the only reason why I use an electric chainsaw is because it's way lighter than a gas powered one. Uh, I don't care if you call me a wuss. Those things are heavy, so I use my little electric one. But I want to get a cordless chainsaw, and I'm gonna try it. I don't know when I'm gonna try it, but and if it doesn't work out, I don't care. I mean, that's what I mean by be safe, of course, don't do anything reckless. And if you're young, definitely make sure your parents are on board. But that's what I mean by um, don't be afraid to do these things. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You suck at it? Well, we all suck at it at first. It's it's just it's part of it, you know? Every person that you've ever seen that creates anything amazing has put more time than you know into that to get where they're at. And I know this has been said a gazillion times, but I'm going to say it a gazillion and one time because, you know, I think it's important to hear encouraging words, and especially nowadays. Yeah, there's just so much cool and amazing and fun things out there to experience. So don't limit yourself. Okay, so how I'm getting these really small lines is I'm basically just using the very point of the brush, and I'm gently tapping down, and I do mean gently. If you press too hard, your brush bristles are going to fall to one side and cause a mess. So of course, just gently tap to one on there to get your straight lines. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's see, what else did I want to say about this experience? I hope that if you're a new person to art, that you watch this video and you're inspired to try this, and or find somebody that is inspiring to you to try to emulate and try watercolor, try oil painting, try sculpting, you know. I hope this inspires you guys to be more than consumers, but be doers. Because you never know when it's all going to go away. Okay, guys, right here, I'm just using the very corner. I mixed some white with some yellow, and I'm mixing the very corner, and I'm sorry, I'm using the very corner of the brush, and I'm just tapping in with my finger, and it's doing two things. It's kind of helping to soften the edges where I've laid down the paint, and it makes it look more real, like it's a part of the apple instead of just sitting on top. And then the other thing it does is it picks up some of that paint and moves some of those dots to the other part of the apple, so that you end up having not just variation in size and shape, but variation in levels of strength of those dots. So some of them are very faded, some of them are very prominent, and that also helps aid to the effect of making the apple look a little bit more realistic. It also makes it to where you don't have to add so many little tiny dots, because you're actually creating more dots just by picking. It's like a stamp. Your fingers picking up the paint and stamping it onto another part. So yeah, and I don't know where I learned that. I think it's just intuitive. Some of these things are just intuitive. Like you just do it and you think it's going to work, and it does. And sometimes it ends up working terribly. But you know what's great is it's just paint. Like, art is the one, painting, I should say, is one of the few places in your life where you can mess up a ton. And in fact, it's encouraged, and as many times as possible until you get it right, because it's considered progress. The more you mess up, you're making progress. You're figuring it out. It's coming together. So don't be afraid to mess up. None of these things take that long. And well, at least not in the beginning. These kind of little studies, that's what they are. They're studies. They're just to get you familiar with the materials and the paint and the brushes. Don't treat it like it's your final masterpiece, because it's not. You know, it's just not. It's just a study. It's just to get you to the next level. And the more of these studies you do, the better you're going to get, to where eventually you'll have all this experience and knowledge under your belt, and then you will be able to do your masterpiece. So anyway, if you have been painting along with me and you made it this far, I'm hoping that you're starting to see it come together. Yeah. So what I did right here, now what I should have done, it doesn't matter, it ends up working out, but what I should have done is waited until those dots were completely dry before going over it with a new highlight. But they were pretty dry because my finger had smashed it down, so it wasn't that big of a deal. What I had done was I took my yellow, light yellow, white color, and I dipped it in a lot of water and I blotted it on the napkin. And what that does is it gives you a glaze. So you can see all the work you've done underneath, but you still have this film on top of the painting, if that makes sense. So that's what I had done there. And then I go back in and I'm starting to do that with the leaf. I start to fill in the highlights and the shadows. Here's where I get kind of carried away with what I'm working on. Uh, this is very common, even for professional artists. Sometimes we get hung up on something, and it's almost like we can't stop staring. You just got to keep working through it and working through it. And sometimes when you get that way, you've got to just put it aside. Don't look at it for a minute. Step back from your painting and then come back to it, and you'll see what it is that's wrong. Sometimes we're too hyper focused on what's in front of us, and we kind of miss what it is that's bothering us in our painting. Um, so don't forget to pause and take a step back. I didn't do that on on the leaf, but you should do that. So uh, maybe learn from my mistakes. I don't always do that, but it does happen. Anyway, the thing that most surprised me about using this method of layering with acrylics is how quickly it comes together. Because I know that acrylic paint dries fast. I've always known that. That's part of what I actually don't like about it. But it does make it awfully convenient when you're layering colors to not have to wait a couple hours or a day or 5 days to work back on that, whatever it is you're working on. I will say this about oils. I do, oh gosh, anywhere from 5 to sometimes 8, maybe even more paintings at one time. What do I mean by that? I will start a painting, and while that painting is drying, I'll work on another one. And while that one's drying, I'll work on another one. And I just rotate. So it's not like oil painters are doing one painting and then they're just sitting there for 5 days straight waiting to paint again. That's not what oil painters do, or at least that's not what most oil painters do. Um, we have many projects going at one time and in various stages, and that way we paint every single day or almost every single day if we're blessed enough to have the time to do it. They do take more time. Each piece takes more time. because of the layering. However, there's nothing like it in my opinion. The richness of the colors and the saturation and the effects you can get, I just absolutely love. The only other painting medium that I absolutely love is airbrushing. I worked with airbrush for many years, and I don't have an airbrush anymore, sadly. It got stolen out of my car, and I just never replaced it. But I really enjoyed airbrushing. In fact, when I was doing acrylic painting years ago, the like 3 paintings that I did, uh, I hated the blendability of acrylics, and of course I wasn't layering like I'm doing in this painting. So I hope that you guys, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not talking too much. I hope you guys are seeing what it is that I'm doing here. I'm mixing a little bit of blue. If I want to make that yellow a little bit darker, I will add a little bit of red into that green. It neutralizes the brightness of the green a little bit, but because I was trying to get a deeper tone, I did that. Sorry, I get sidetracked real easy. That's the artist brain, I guess. But my point is the airbrush is awesome. I would use the airbrush to kind of do all my shadows and shading and stuff over top of my acrylic pieces of art because they're both water-based. So you can do that. Oh man, the airbrush is great. It's really great. I should buy one again. Maybe I will. But first I need to get a better camera. So priorities. Anyway, this is where I start to really kind of overwork this leaf. I should have stopped where I was at on the leaf. It was fine. And then I ended up going in and messing it up for a while, and then I ended up bringing it back to a point where I could live with it. You're never really done with the work that you're doing. You only hit a point that you feel like, okay, I can live with that, you know? Well, at least that's where I get. I get to a point where I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. And sometimes, in fact, I say that a lot, it's fine. Sometimes it's not fine. Sometimes a couple days later, I look at it and go, oh man, what did I do? But that's okay. It's okay. You know, it's just paint, and it can be painted over. And it can be painted over as many times as you need to where you get it to where you feel happy with it. see, do I finally move on? Yep, yay, I finally leave the leaf alone. So now I'm taking some, oh, by the way, none of my highlights are white. Just so you know, I mean, the background's white. So that white that you see, that's just the canvas. I'm gonna go in with my brush and just kind of lay down some pinky whites. I went a little too light here, so I end up making it more pink in a minute here. But yeah, your highlights very rarely are stark white. Now people can use stark white in their paintings. You can do whatever you want in your painting. There's no real rules. There's the fundamentals, there's the basics, there's structure, all that kind of stuff. There's things you can learn to help improve your art, but there's no real rules. If you want to go in with stark white, do it. I don't care, you know. But if you want it to look a little bit more realistic, typically your whites are not going to be 100% white. They're going to be a little bit of an off shade. So I'm using a pinky white here and then I actually end up darkening it quite a bit right here to get some of my line work back, which is fine, you know, it's no big deal. Again, guys, it's just paint. I wish there was a way that I could see what y'all were painting if you guys ended up doing this practice with me. Maybe there is a way and I just don't know about it because, like I said, I'm not a techie. I'll have to ask my son. He's a smart one. But it'd be really cool if you guys painted this with me. And it'd be so neat to see what you guys came up with or how you guys went about doing it. Or if you even used acrylic. Maybe you used watercolor. Maybe you use oil paint. Maybe you use, I don't know, something that's not acrylic. But it would be cool to see. Okay, so again, right here, my highlight, it's just a very, I don't have a lot of paint. It's mostly water. And I do that because you want to be able to see the layer underneath. Okay, now it looks like I'm going and reinforcing some of my darks again. I recorded this after the fact because I was painting in my kitchen and my kitchen has an echo. So the audio just doesn't translate very good. I'm recording this by watching it and voicing over. So when you hear me say stuff like, I think this is what I did here, that's why, because I actually don't remember. Now, in the real painting, I can still see all those little dots. They're not buried. You can still see them, but in the video footage, it almost seems like I erased some of them with the highlight and with the shadow area. That's not the case. It's just my camera. So now I'm just reinforcing some of my line work here. We're almost done. This is pretty much done. I'm just gonna go back through and clean up some of my line work and tone down some of my highlights and yeah, there's a few other things that we need to add here. There's some wonkiness on the right side of my apple, and that's the drawing. That was me. I drew it weird. Again, probably if I was working on this one for days, I would notice it the next day and I would correct that. But because this is a one sitting, just for fun practice apple, I'm not concerned with it. But if you notice these things in your own painting, if you are painting along, now's the time to kind of step back, take a look, and see if there's any corrections you need to make with that. Also, I didn't do a pencil sketch first. I'm sure you guys kind of noticed that. If you wanted to do a pencil drawing first, you can. Probably you're going to need to use some kind of fixative so that way your graphite or whatever you're using as your under drawing doesn't mix with the water and contaminate your paint. I gotta be honest, guys, I don't even know about what you would use. I'm just reinforcing again my darks. And let's see. I think I end up doing the stem next. I'm pretty sure. Oh no, I didn't. I ended up doing some of my highlighted areas a little bit more light, I think. Okay, well, whatever. So right here, we're finally going to be using black. And if you don't know, when you mix red, blue, and yellow, you get brown. I wanted a darker brown, so I ended up, and because I already had red and yellow with the green, I'm just adding into that pile right there. I took a little bit of the black, some red, some of the green, and that gives me my brown. So also, I forgot to mention, obviously, well, I don't know, maybe it's not obvious. I used only the primary colors, which is red, yellow, and blue, for this entire painting, with the exception of black and white. That's another one of those things that I wanted to demonstrate, that you can pretty much make any color you're going to need with just your primary colors. Now, you may not be able to make the shade of color necessarily that you want, like, or the chroma, the brightness level, but it's a good starting point, and it forces you to learn how to work with a limited palette. For me, I know everybody's different, but for me, when I'm learning something new, less information is better. And I don't care what it is. I want the very bare bones, basic example. And then I like to build on that knowledge. So here I kind of decide I'm done, and then I decide, no, I'm not. Because that's art. Um, there's some green right in the, you're not even going to be able to see what I do because my camera doesn't capture it. But there's just a little bit of a green color near the core of the apple that I wanted to add. So I do that, but really it's not even that noticeable. But yeah, you would be kind of amazed at how many different colors you can make out of just basic yellow, basic red, and basic blue. Like you can make such a variety on the cheap. So say you go into your Walmart and you're learning how to paint with acrylics for the first time and they didn't have one of those. They've made it so affordable for everybody now that they have a set that has every color of the rainbow. But say that you didn't have that and you were forced to buy individual bottles of paint. If you only had a limited amount of money, you would want to buy just those three colors and then a white and a black. And that would give you every color you would need within nature for the most part to be able to create whatever painting you want to create. Again, I go back and I glaze in just a little bit more of a dominant highlight. That's not in the original piece of art. There's a highlight there, but it's pretty soft. But there was a reason I did that. I think it just didn't look as bright as I wanted it to. Anyway, you guys, thank you. I know this was a super long video. Let me know if you've painted along with me. That'd be so cool if you did. And let me know some of your stories. I'd love to hear them. I I love people. I know that's rare nowadays to hear somebody say that. Most of the time, people are like, people suck and I hate people. I've never been that way. I've always loved people. And I think that's a blessing, honestly. And so I would love to hear anything that you have to say about your art. If you have questions, please ask me. Artists are very, very giving, and we love to share the things that we've learned. There's no gatekeeping with most of us. There's no magic tricks that we're trying to keep for ourselves. If we find out or discover how to do something, quite often we want to share it with everybody, mainly because we're excited, but also because we want you to be excited and create awesome things too. We have a gift, we should share it, you know? All right, you guys, I pray that y'all are well. I pray that you have a wonderful night and are in good health.